Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Saturday, November 16th, 2024, and today's topic will be the challenge part 3, and it'll be about coloring. I do apologize for coughing. It's just when I start to speak, it makes it more. Should be okay. Alright, so yeah, this is part 3, and to begin with, I'm going to talk about this, because this is a continuation of the inking from yesterday. And then next we'll talk about the coloring, which I did mention that I don't know if I could resist not coloring it, and as it turns out I could not resist, so I went ahead and colored it, and I'll talk about that process. I printed it out, I scanned it. But yeah, before we begin, welcome back if you're returning, welcome if you're new, and I sketch and post every day, and I set timers, 5-minute timers. I'll go ahead and just do 5 minutes to stay focused and to build a daily sketching habit. So yeah, if you compare this where I'm at here with yesterday's video, you'll see that I went in and added more detail, which was fine. I learned a lot during this whole process, and this will be the last video about this illustration. But one thing I wanted to do was scan it in and like not color this, because I do like it. I think it's a nice little, like, in some ways this is more of an illustration than this, although like not really. It could be argued, but I still like it. Like, it works as a black and white sketch, and I could either leave it like this, but to me, like, it's not that finished like this, and so I used a Sharpie pen, which is, I call it a fine point, to do all of this. And then if I were to want to have this look more finished, or like more like a pen and ink drawing, I would go in with, or I'm gonna go in right now with my usual Papermate, which I call like a medium point, and then I would just accentuate some of the, like, if I wanted to darken some of the line work, I would just use this to do that. That would be my next thing with like the black and white picture here. Maybe just kind of work on the shadows and stuff. And like if I wanted to darken in the hair, like that's what I would do, and then just finish it that way. But I feel like between these two pens, like, they work pretty good. But I'll go over all the different tools. Now in this one, in the other ones I called it step by step, but this one won't be step by step because I already colored it. But I'll go over like what I did. So I'll just call it like coloring or something. But I like this, so hopefully you got some use out of this process. This is my favorite, honestly, like just coming up with like the idea and then drawing it. Like, we sketched it, and then this, to me, like, by the time you get to this part, like, that's a drawing. So, which could be used for a lot of other purposes, and it could also just be like a black and white comic panel. So so I like that. But here, so what I did was I scanned it in and I printed it out and I enlarged it. And one, I kind of forgot that if you enlarge it, of course, it's going to make the ink lines thicker, which sort of goes against the purpose of using like a fine point. So that's kind of why it looks like this, like more cartoony, basically. But I was like, okay, I'll just work with it. I just wanted to see. But one, I did like kind of want it to be this big, so I did sort of say that like this could still work actually, but this whole process was kind of a big experiment for me anyway. So yeah, that's one thing that happened. And then the other is, because I did blow it up, and because of like it's an inkjet printer, then the other thing that happened was the ink is gonna smudge, if you want to call it that, or mix with like the markers, especially like the more that you go over them. So it's just stuff like that. So it ended up being like a mixed media piece. But I like it. I think it's pretty cool. I think it fits the idea of the hero's journey, and it's kind of nostalgic. Like, it looks kind of like an old school RPG. So I would consider it a success. So that's 5 minutes for those of you that just want to sketch for 5 minutes. But let's continue. I started another 5-minute timer. So we went over the pens, and we started with like a pencil. So that's how we got to here. And then, yeah, I like keeping it as a black and white drawing. I think it looks cool. I think it also could be used for other, like, this is just one experiment, one way of coloring it, which I wouldn't even say like this is my usual style, or I would do it again. I mean, it's kind of cool. I learned a lot. But so after the black and white drawing, then for this, I basically used, these are all the tools that I use. So I said I picked up some new markers. So I picked up these lighter Sharpie S-Note Duo. So they have like a chisel point and like a finer point. And I mainly got them because they had like the light color. Yeah. So there's that, and then excuse me. And then the usual like Papermate felt tip pen. So I have different colors of those. So I'll just put that over here, just so you can see. And then and then I got these. Well, I had these, and they're these Sipa is the brand, but they're 0.38 millimeter, and they're like the tiniest tip. They're like ultra fine or something, but yeah, 0.38 millimeters, pretty small. But they did come in handy. So that's basically what I used for this picture. But there was a lot that I learned from it. I had already mentioned what it means to enlarge it. It's going to make the lines thicker, which has this look, which isn't terrible. I mean, but it's a look. It's cartoony. The other thing is that like just the way that I use the colors was I wouldn't necessarily like just always do it this way. Like this isn't like the right way to do it, but it works for this. But as far as the kind of like the process, there's just so many ways to approach it. Like one thing is, well, there's some areas here. So another thing that could be good to talk about is, like, could this be used as an illustration or is it too sketchy? But to me, for sure, it is like a color study. Like, for sure, it would help with that. And so if I were going to paint this up in some other way, then it would really help with the color, because I would know, I wouldn't have to think about that. Like, I would just think about the medium that I was using. So there's that. So for sure it's helpful for that. The other thing is, could it be used for an illustration, like a finished piece? I think it could if it had more details. So for example, if it's kind of still kind of sketchy, like right there. So that's kind of what I wanted to kind of work on and kind of go over the process with you. So one thing is, it's good to test out the color, and that was part of it. Like, part of what this picture was about was just seeing how these different mediums interacted with each other. So to make it more of an illustration, in my opinion, it would need more detail, more fine detail. So that's 5 minutes. And so I'm just going to work on this to begin with. And so yeah, just detail the shapes a little bit better. And just kind of unify the whole picture. Now in the inking stage, I was talking about this from the video yesterday. I was talking about how it's important to be deliberate, and like I was very deliberate. The other thing I would want to talk about is, if I kept it at this size, this much shading is okay for like the coloring, because it does affect obviously like the size of the pen that you're using, or the marker that you're using. If I had kept it at this size, now I could just, since I already scanned this, I could have printed it out again. But the other thing is that I didn't want to start a new version of this, because I do want this to be like the actual piece. I don't want to make this seem like, because I like it, it's just kind of a different style than what I would normally do. It's more cartoony than what I would normally do. But then again, like, I like it, so that's one thing. Like, if you kind of keep refining the shapes. The other thing is that I worked on this for about 2 hours in the evening, and then I went to sleep, and now I can see it better. So there's that. Because what happens is, if the mentality is, oh, I have to finish this, it started to get into the realm of overwork, meaning, and what that really means is, it could literally mean overwork in the sense that you can't work on that paper anymore. Like, any color you add is just going to muddy it, because the paper is already absorbed as much as it can. So there's that kind of overwork. And then the other overwork is just messing with what's already done, and now you created like work for yourself. So that kind of happened, for example, like around this part, because I had like the mist and like the clouds and stuff, and I didn't really like the way it looked right here, and so I started working on it, but like it just started to get like muddy and stuff like that. So I knew it was time to step away from it, which can be difficult because you're so, like, the adrenaline is going and you want to, I mean, the picture's looking good and you're wanting to finish it up, but it's just not going to happen. Because even now, like, I was struggling with this for a little bit, kind of like how to do it, and because part of it is, like I said, because of the ink lines got thicker, and so it changes the look of it. And so, yeah, if you go in with like this kind of how I started was just use this. I'm not going to do it too much because that's already pretty okay, but you kind of start with like the light kind of base color. As far as like the color scheme, I was just looking at like a landscape, so there's basically a landscape, and I just went with the character looking like this, which kind of looks like Shining Force actually, and I was talking about how that was one of my favorite games, so I was subconsciously channeling Shining Force there. And then the next thing would be, yeah, like this, and then I would just use, so there's like some areas I wouldn't make it all look the same. So for example, these mountains look a little different than these, and I wouldn't try to make these look the same. It looks more interesting looking different, but that's kind of what I mean, like just adding a little more fine details. But since it's kind of a cartoony picture, I wouldn't go overboard. I mean, it can look kind of cartoony, there's nothing wrong with that. And then as far as like this one is actually like really helpful, that's what I used here, so that does affect like the composition. So that's 5 minutes. I'll start another one and kind of wrap it up because I feel like this kind of served its purpose. But and it's a trilogy, yet another trilogy of videos. So yeah, there's 2 more videos if this is your first one, that goes with this series from the previous 2 days. So yeah, this does affect it. So so this is purple. I'm not gonna put down purple. I had a black. This isn't the same brand, but it's a little bit thicker. Excuse me. But the pen, like there's a black one that's like really thin like this, and I also used it on like the little details. It does help, like it helps out. So I'm not going to do too much of this because this ink looks a little different. But you can use like this for the little details. So yeah, that's how I did this. Might be good to put a little color on that one. Maybe that's what I could use this for. But like this little ultra fine point comes in handy actually. Can't really, it just looks well. And the other interesting thing is like it looks kind of like black ink, but like it doesn't, like it makes a difference. Like if I had used black ink there, it would, that's the thing with color, like it just makes a difference. So like I said, color is kind of its own thing because it's partly the value and everything, but it's also like just the way it interacts. What else can I work on as I wrap this up? Like this part just kind of got a little bit overworked. I'm probably just gonna leave it. The other option would be if I scanned this in and just made it look like, render it some more like digitally, like there's that, but I'm not a huge fan of that, but like it could be done. There's just a lot of options, and like I said, it could also be used as like a color study. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. I did have this idea that as I'm approaching 2,000 subscribers, which I'm really thankful for, because it wasn't that long ago that I was thanking my subscribers for 300. I was amazed at that. So yeah, like as we get closer to 2,000, I was thinking maybe I could have this be available for download. Like you can print it out somehow and color it. I don't know, because it was fun to actually, like, that's the other thing, is I kind of approached it like a coloring book, and it was actually really fun, I gotta admit. But for this piece, yeah, like I said, I mean, you reach a certain point where you can't, like, the only way to adjust that would be to make it, like, use black ink or something, and then it would compete with, like, this. The other thing I did want to say, as far as, like, the color part of it, is there's so many ways to approach it, and this isn't even paint, this is just markers. But, like, for example, like gray, like at first I started in with like gray marker and kind of did the tones, and there's an art to that also. Like, it helped a lot. It kind of helped, like, that's kind of what's unifying it, actually. So it doesn't have to be gray. It's good, I mean, but it has like a certain look. I mean, it might look kind of drab, if you will, but you could use other colors. It's just stuff like that you just kind of have to play around with, and it's also the medium that kind of affects that. But yeah, as this 5-minute session is drawing to a close, I want to thank you for joining me today. And yeah, check out the other 2 videos, part 1 and 2, and if you like the videos, please support the channel, and I thank you for supporting the channel. We're almost at 2,000, so I really appreciate that, and until next time, keep on sketching.